Today we will be working on problem solving compare fractions, lesson 9.1. Our essential question for this lesson is, how can you use the strategy acted out to solve comparison problems? In this lesson we will be using fraction strips to help us act out the problem. Before we begin, let's take a look at this set of fraction strips. If I wanted to find what fractions are the same size as 1/2, I could move this pink line to the right edge of 1/2 and look for pieces in different rows that match or are the same size as 1/2. If I follow the line down, I can see that 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 5/10, and 6/12 are all the same size as 1/2. To show that they are all the same size, I would write an equivalence chain that looks like this. To get an idea of each fraction's size, let's take a look at these unit fractions. I have lined up the left edge of the strips and ordered them from largest to smallest. Using these strips, I can see that 1/12 is the smallest. Remember, the greater the denominator, the smaller the piece. Watch and listen as I solve this problem. Mary and Vincent climbed up a rock wall at the park. Mary climbed 3/4 of the way up the wall. Vincent climbed 3/8 of the way up the wall. Who climbed higher? You can act out the problem by using manipulatives to help you compare fractions. We are going to be using the fraction strips. This one strip shows you the size of one whole. Now I have used the 1/4 fraction strips to create 3/4, which is what Mary climbed. And using the 1/8 strips, I have created 3/8 to represent how high Vincent climbed. The question asked, who climbed higher? Looking at the strips, I can see that 3/4 is longer than 3/8. So Mary climbed higher. Pay close attention to your signs that represent less than, greater than, and equal to. To compare the lengths, I would write 3/4 is greater than 3/8. Or I could also write 3/8 is less than 3/4. I can also use fraction circles to model fractions. Let's take a look at this problem. The camp leader is making waffles for breakfast. Tracy ate 3/6 of her waffle. Kim ate 5/6 of her waffle. Who ate more of her waffle? Using the 1/6 pieces of a fraction circle, I can use 3/6 to represent Tracy and 5/6 to represent Kim. Comparing the two circles, I can see that Kim definitely ate more of her waffle than Tracy. To compare these fractions, I would write 5/6 is greater than 3/6, or I would write 3/6 is less than 5/6. How would we know that 5/6 is greater than 3/6 without using the models? Well, I know that the 1/6 unit pieces are all the same size. You can see that the denominators are the same. And I know that 5 is greater than 3. Therefore, 5/6 is greater than 3/6. Now open your Go Math workbook to lesson 9.1 on page 175. Pause the video if you need time to open your book. Now let's take a look at problem number 2. Sandra makes a pizza. She puts mushrooms on 2/8 of the pizza. She adds green peppers to 5/8 of the pizza. Which topping covers more of the pizza? I am going to be using fraction strips to solve the problems 2 through 5. First, I will use the strips to create 2/8 to represent the mushrooms. Next, I will use the strips to create 5/8 to represent the green peppers. Now, comparing the strips, I can see that 5/8 is longer than 2/8. So 5/8 is greater than 2/8. So the green peppers covers more of the pizza. Also, because we are comparing the same denominators, 8ths, and I know that 5 is greater than 2, I know that 5/8 is greater than 2/8. Problem number 3. The jars of paint in the art room have different amounts of paint. The green paint jar is 4/8 full. The purple paint jar is 4/6 full. Which paint jar is less full? This time we will be using our 1/8 fraction strips and our 1/6 fraction strips. Notice that the denominators on these two fractions are not the same. I have 1, 2, 3, 4/8 to represent the green paint jar, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4/6 to represent the purple paint jar. Remember that the question asked which paint jar is less full, so I want to look for the smaller fraction. Looking at the two sets of fraction strips, I can see that 4/8 is shorter than 4/6. So 4/8 is less than 4/6, which means the green paint jar is less full. After reading problem number 4, I would like for you to pause the video and try to answer number 4 on your own before following with me. The problem says, Jan has a recipe for bread. She uses 2/3 cup of flour and 1/3 cup of chopped onion. Which ingredient does she use more of? Flour or onion? Notice that this question asks which ingredient does she use more of. So we want to look for the larger fraction. Notice with these fractions, both denominators are the same. I have a 1/3 fraction strip to represent the onion, because in the problem it said 1/3 cup of chopped onion. I have 2/3 to represent the flour, because it said 2/3 cup of flour. Looking at the strips, I can tell that the strip for flour is longer than the strip for onion, which means 2/3 is greater than 1/3. So Jan uses more flour. Remember, because the denominators are the same, I can also look at the numerators and tell that 2 is greater than 1. But I can only do that if both denominators are the same. So how did you do? Moving on to number 5. Once more, try pausing the video after I finish reading number 5 to try to work the problem out on your own before checking with me. Number 5 says, Edward walked 3/4 mile from his home to the park. Then he walked 2/4 mile from the park to the library. Which distance is shorter? Lining up the 3/4 strips and the 2/4 strips, I can see that 2/4 is shorter than 3/4. To compare, I can say 2/4 is less than 3/4. So 2/4 of a mile is shorter. Once again, because the denominators in these two fractions are the same, I can look at the numerators to compare. I know that 2 is smaller than 3, so 2/4 is less than 3/4. Your turn to complete problems 1 through 6 on page 176. Good luck!